Assalamu alaikum everyone. Hope you all guys are doing great today. This is mashallah our sixth week of your Rehnumai series, which is brought to you guys by Rehnumai, which is a one-window solutions to that connects students with scholarships, internships, exchanges, and a lot more. तो हमारा 6 week आ गया है और माशाल्लाह से it's on digital world and we'll be talking about everything related to digital world and we'll be covering it in these 6 days. We'll be talking about the psychology of social applications, social media as a tool for impact, ethics, and tips. We'll be talking about internet and education since our education in this COVID world was completely turned over to digitalization and now like everyone is digital, even if they don't want to study digital education, but they have to. Then we are going to be talking about the future of digital currency and payments and how financial systems and Pakistan are are evolving and will evolve and change. And today we'll be talking about the Enigma of Internet. So we'll be covering today internet as a whole entity. कि internet or cyberspace है क्या and how does it operates in Pakistan and how do we see it? So for that we have an expert here with us who has over 15 years of experience working in vertical dimensions and many dimensions in the world of internet. He is an entrepreneur and has built products that have been downloaded and being that have been paid for over 70 million times. And he's a director at the Mindstorm Studios, and he aims to have the digital and he aims to have the video game industry in Pakistan at its best. So welcome. क्या हाल है यासर आपका? उम्मीद आप खैरियत से होंगे.
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. अच्छा तो हम when it comes to internet हमारे पास हमने जो है वो when I was discussing with you and we were talking कि enigma of internet क्या है, internet क्या है, तो we touched upon a myriad of topics. हमने कोई hundreds of topics discuss कर लिए कि हम किन किन topics के ऊपर बात करें. तो but I want to keep it I want to take a start with a very very narrow topics ना. मैं इनको बड़ी narrow से लेके जाके then we'll हम broad हो जाएंगे, topic scenario based करेंगे. तो I'll ask you कि internet govern कौन करता है? Like ये जो cyber space है, who is it governed by? कौन इसके laws बना रहा है?
Well, technically, it's not supposed to be governed.
Okay.
There is one function of internet that is supervised by an organization called ICANN, but generally it's an information highway that's for the people, and it's generally not governed. There are laws in each country that are defined by the governments of those countries. But generally, the internet is supposed to be is supposed to be very democratic, and it shouldn't be governed by any organization or government.
Acha, interesting. So it shouldn't be governed, and so is it okay to call it a free space?
Free, yeah, free. Free is a very dangerous word, but I would rather say call it a free space, but make sure it's a safe space.
It's a safe space. So what makes it the safe space? Let's talk about some cybercrime laws that are available in Pakistan and how they enable internet to be a safe space.
So cybercrime, obviously laws are something that for the longest period of time our country really didn't have any. But over the course of few years, Pakistan maybe cybercrime laws have been enforced because the inventor kind of like social media has really put things on a hyper growth path, and there is a lot of information being created, a lot of opinions being made, which require internet to be sort of like, so there's a new requirement of internet being safer space. But other than that, internet, it's not just the information being created, it's also internet is part of, so it's sort of like everyday life. So anything from financial transactions to information and everything in between is something that requires at times laws to govern things, to monitor things, and take actions. Just a real life may. So your real life is more or less right now. Actually, you spend more time online as compared to in the physical world.
Yeah.
It's not just because of the pandemic. It's generally that's how it is. We are always connected, always producing information, always interacting with people. So this space also requires laws. पाकिस्तान में भी साइबर क्राइम एक्ट के नाम पे एक एक्ट मौजूद है. We won't go into the detail of those acts because that's not the point of this session. But there are a lot of bits and pieces that, for instance, our government needs to look at. For example, for the longest period of time, the government struggled with the spam policy, how it should be defined. And same goes for governments like the ones that we have, not the current government, but generally Pakistani government. There are all sorts of attempts in the past that have been made to kind of like control internet, not just by the governments, but also by corporations as well. For example, the platform that we are going live on right now, Facebook itself has tried to kind of like control the internet highway multiple times, and it has succeeded. At times to a certain extent in countries like Pakistan, even though they were thrown out in places like India, where they were much more informed campaigns again, initiatives like internet.org, which was a Facebook initiative. But in Pakistan, they have had the corporate support primarily from telecom operators, and generally the government hasn't been at times paying a lot of attention to it.
Then again, we saw in the past कि एक time पे YouTube बंद कर दी गई over some, blasphemy that happened in the Europe, and then the government could just ban some websites, एक बड़ी website बंद कर दी, and then they opened it later when they talked to them probably. So some way it can, so that you can say the government in some way or not it controls, but not all over, right? तो हम ये ऐसे इसको conclude कर सकते हैं जो आपने बोला.
Government can like have a negotiation chip when it comes to the firewalls and blocking stuff, and but I think the better way to do this, so go about doing this, is to kind of like have a communication channel with uh, these big companies, because these big companies kind of like now control in a lot of cases the destination that people go to as well, and they when it comes to the economy, they can have an impact on your economy as well. These companies have bigger, more revenues than the GDP of a lot of countries.
Yeah.
So these corporations are also within in their rights now countries. So yeah. So this is a battle, ever-going battle between the corporates and the government. Who controls the power on the
Interesting.
internet? Yeah.
Interesting. So, who controls the power on the internet? So, let's move on to that. Let's try to see how the power of social media is there. कितना powerful social media है हमारा, और social media से हमारी यहाँ मुराद exactly Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and ये इस तरह की सारी applications हैं. तो how do you see कि हमारी जिंदगियों में कितना बड़ा एक powerful tool बन गया एक social media?
I think internet generally is like oxygen. So like you breathe, you generate data, or you exchange information. For if you look at it from that perspective, so internet is a really powerful tool. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. So is social media as well. So in the sort of like for the past 15 years, social media kind of like has really turned things around. The entire revolution of kind of like machine learning has been kind of like the new life has been kind of like breath into it, given the amount of data that's being generated, the Internet of Things that has been enabled through internet. So social media की जब हम बात करते हैं, तो it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Just like our media, you can use to kind of like you can use to spread information, use it to spread information. You can use it for constructive purposes, but you can also use it for destructive purposes as well. So it's not good or bad in its own sense, but what is it used for is something to be determined, and it's a very powerful tool, which makes it kind of like very dangerous as well as very effective at some based on the usage that we do.
ठीक है. And as we talk about the social media as a tool for power, let's talk about a few incidences that occurred in Pakistan very recently. And I'm going to start with something that an institution, that is an educational institution, tried to control something on internet. ठीक है. तो अब ये हुआ कि वाकया इस तरह से है कि फास्ट यूनिवर्सिटी के some students they made some memes and then they uploaded them on Facebook or Instagram, and उन्होंने वो देखी उनकी इंतजामिया ने, and वो 15 बच्चों को उन्होंने एक साल के लिए या एक सेमेस्टर के लिए उनको एक्सपेल कर दिया, एंड देन उनके ऊपर डिसिप्लिनरी नोटिस डाल दिया. तो how do you see के do you think that ये एक जो एक्शन लिया जो एक स्कूल ने एक्शन लिया was it valid, और यहाँ पर किन को क्या समझने की जरूरत है इस वाक्य में?
So this is a very good question. So the first thing we need to understand is that we generally struggle with our understanding of the internet. Be it the authorities when they are trying to control the internet, be it our institutes like the one you mentioned. Uh, so पहली बात तो ये है, it's a matter of understanding what you're trying to judge. Do you really have the forensic ability to establish who did what? For instance, सबसे important बात यहाँ पे, so the thing is, as I said, social media is a double-edged sword. If you use it for negative purpose, you can ruin lives, and that has essentially happening a lot as well. It's not just the positive things that come out of internet. It's also things spreading like wildfire. Anything, be it positive, be it negative, things trending that has had a lot of social, psychological pressure on younger people, for instance. So one of the important things to keep in mind here is what happened was wrong. Full
Yeah.
stop. First thing first. So now there's a degree of the wrong that happened there. But the most important thing that we need to understand is that our institutes don't have the capability to judge who did what. So I would consider that the institute kind of like abused, in case of fast abused its power. The disciplinary committee abused its power. What they should have done was a proper authority should have been engaged, who had the ability, forensic ability to देखें इसको इस तरह से समझें, हमारे पास सामने मशाल खान का इंसिडेंट, हमने कुछ नहीं सीखा, ठीक है. What happened there was जो भी content था, later it was established that there was fake accounts posting stuff online from his name just to kind of like sort of like trap him into this narrative and kind of like hit him hard. Okay. So
Bully him.
he ended up dying. It was a lynch mob that killed him. So we didn't learn anything from that incident. What should be done is a proper, relevant authority should be engaged who has the forensic ability to determine कि ये जो content post हो रहा है ये कौन कर रहा है. Now, given that you have a disciplinary committee in an institute has power, reacting to certain things prematurely in this case would actually, so it might happen that there are some right people who have been punished, there are some wrong people who have been wrongly punished as well. Now that's not fair. That's why I say there is a need of engaging an authority that has the proper forensic ability. Now, an institute also to keep in mind shouldn't really threaten or shouldn't really use this card that your degree will be cancelled. A degree can only be cancelled by an institute if it has been determined using illegal means. Otherwise, an institute cannot use this argument to kind of like cancel degrees. We don't see even the biggest of the criminals. Have you ever heard कि किसी की degree cancel हुई हो?
No.
It doesn't even get cancelled for murder
And guess what? And guess what? It does the what the disciplinary notice that they have issued. It just does not even only apply to students जो पढ़ रहे हैं, बल्कि उन्होंने कहा है कि जो students graduate हो चुके हैं, हम उनकी डिग्रियां cancel कर देंगे if they publish something that's वो अच्छा नहीं, इंतजामिया को अच्छा नहीं लगेगा in joke form या फिर serious form or any sort of that. And
एक बहुत serious implication है जो इस चीज की जो हम realize नहीं करते, and that's what both sides need to understand. Generally, when it comes to a conflict, and we wanted to talk about this as well, and hopefully we will, most of the people settle on an extreme narrative on either of the sides. What's important is the bigger implication of what has happened. Just because of this abuse of power, what happens is, देखें, institute को क्या करना चाहिए? Institute should side with the victim. Let's for a second assume there was no disciplinary action. There was nothing, there was no notice, there was no action had been taken so far. Let's assume we were there. What should have happened was the institute should have sided with the victim. If anyone felt that they have been wrong, proper authority should have been engaged. अब ये नहीं हुआ ना तो होता क्या है? We hear a lot of times in a lot of institutes where victims have been asked to shut up because if they उनकी बदनामी होगी और कुछ नहीं होगा, because those authorities don't have the courage or the ability to solve the problem. And that's the bigger implication, because now what's going to happen is it's very murky, it's very blurry. At the end of the day, all those posted posts will be taken down, they will be deleted, there will be no forensic evidence of anything, and the preparators who did this, they won't be punished. There might be some people innocents who have been punished, there might be some people who did this, they get punished, but there will be no way to tell.
तो बेसिकली आप एक एमिएबल तरीके से, मतलब अब देखें ना, जो जो लोग विक्टिम्स हैं वो भी बच्चे हैं, एंड दे आर यूजिंग एन इंटरनेट, मतलब वो भी इंटरनेट पे मतलब कुछ चीज़ बना के डाल रहे हैं, तो आप उनको समझाएं। जो एक इंस्टीट्यूशन का एक जो काम होता है रहनुमाई का, और उसको बच्चों को समझाने का, निखारने का, बनाने का, तो क्या वो उस तरीके से भी तो हो सकता था, क्योंकि डिड इट इन अ स्पर ऑफ अ मोमेंट। अच्छा, इस बात को मजीद हम नहीं करेंगे, हमारे पास एक और बड़ा रीसेंट इंसिडेंट है जो कि दैट हैज बीन एक्चुअली बीन अप्रेज्ड. So there was an Instagram movement very recently, like just 2 3 days ago. एक लड़की ने अपने इंस्टाग्राम के ऊपर शी स्टार्टेड पुटिंग स्टोरीज ऑफ पीपल हु वर हैरेस्ड बाय देयर टीचर्स. स्कूल का नाम चूंकि अब सबको पता चल गया, बिकॉज स्कूल एक्चुअली डिड एन एक्शन. स्कूल का नाम है लाहौर ग्रामर स्कूल. उन्होंने क्या किया लाहौर में अंदर, उन्होंने एक्चुअली दे लुक्ड अपॉन द केसेस, दे हर्ड पीपल ऑन द इंटरनेट, and they fired the 3 of the teachers who were, involved in that. And the good thing that happened out of this, I don't know if this was a good thing or not. I'm not going to make an opinion on this. I will ask you to opinion on this. All of this happened on the internet. There was no police involved. It was an harassment case after all. There was no police involved. Koi court mein nahi koi gaya, and all of this happened over the digital world. So how do you see this? How do you see किस तरह इंटरनेट की पावर इस्तेमाल की गई इस केस के अंदर?
So before the power of internet, the first thing that we need to understand here is, and there's a lot that I don't know about that incident, because there is some information out there that it had been happening for so long, and it was reported as well where school did not take the action previously. Perhaps it blew out of proportion due to social media, and that pushed the school to kind of like take action. But only thing I'd say about that is that's the power of social media right there. But one of the most important thing here is, and since a lot of young people listen to this video series, I would encourage to support your sisters, your friends, your sons, your daughters, your brothers, to speak up against harassment and sexual harassment. Support them, because a lot of young people don't speak about what's happening to them because there is a sense of shame attached to it. There's a lot of victim shaming, victim blaming. There is a lot of things like कि बदनामी हो जाएगी. And I think the first thing that is most important is that a lot of these girls spoke up, and that is something really that should be taken as an example. They took a platform that is naturally the most effective, because that's where people hear you as well. That's where it has already been established through the movements like Me Too that that information travels faster on internet, and they chose a medium that's effective for them. But the most important thing here is they had the courage to speak up and stand up, and that's something we should encourage a lot, especially when it comes to younger kids, because there is a lot of this happening both online and offline, and people, mainly women, generally would speak up because there's a lot of stigma attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for answering that. So let's move on from that. We discussed 2 of the cases that we actually saw, 2 of the sides of 2 very different spectrums take actions of, very different kind. So let's move on to another thing on internet that we always see happening on social media, the cancel culture. I really want you to talk about what cancel culture is and how it impacts people and how it's, formed.
I think for cancel culture, one of the deepest of the psychological impact that social media has had on younger kids, particularly. देखो मेरी जो generation है ना, we live for it. We like yelling at people. We like poking our nose in every topic, and so we kind of like live it. I think one of the things that has really impacted younger people, particularly the younger generation, is the obligation of having an opinion about everything, because you have to be part of the conversation. Generally, when it comes to a school, if you go to a school or a college, the cool kids, they are not just part of the conversation, they are right at the middle of it. They are the center of the conversation, center of the attention. Social media now, imagine social media being an environment where it's not just 4 or 5 friends, it's millions of people, and your struggle is to kind of like be at the center of attention. That kind of like creates an obligation to have an opinion about everything. And nobody can have that. Nobody has the time to look up information, to study things and make an opinion, construct an opinion about something. And I think that has ended up with a lot, that has kind of like impacted the younger generation a lot. There's a lot of psychological impact when it comes, because that comes with a toll. Am I so, just like, am I the cool kid on the block? Is my social rating good? Do I have enough followers? Are enough people talking to me, talking about me? How do I become part of the bigger conversation? I think that's something that has forced a lot of people to jump into things that they don't know much about, and that results in them saying all sorts of things that they shouldn't be saying. And the one thing that we should be really careful about internet is whatever you say here sticks. It gets
Yeah.
picked up. Maybe now, maybe 5 years from now, maybe when it shouldn't sort of like spring up right about that time when it doesn't need to, it will come up. So it's very important to understand first that internet is no longer an alternate universe where you jump in, do whatever you want to, and come out. That was the
Same.
90s. That was the 90s, where you would hide behind your computer screen and nobody would know about you.
And
This
even
is
in the 90s, there was MySpace, right? And what people would write on MySpace, it still sticks to them, to some of the people who actually used MySpace back then. तो वो आपका साथ
the
रहता है.
internet was moving at a very different pace. It had different. It has a very smaller. It had a smaller audience back then.
Hmm.
There was smaller user base, so it was a different kind of like era. Now everybody's online. Now anybody who has a cell phone is online, is on social platforms.
Online.
So
Hmm.
whatever you say sticks and sticks with your name. So people lose jobs for what they say, and I am not endorsing their opinion. I am just saying there are times you should just shut up. In all honesty, there is no better way to put it. You don't need to kind of like jump into every discussion, and you need to be careful of what you say,
And
because
then as you say कि about being careful of what you say and what you put out there on your walls is very relevant to job seeking as well. Because I heard many of my friends often talk about ke they apply, they were very controversial in their Facebook posts that they were sharing and they were making, and one day they applied abroad, and they when they वैसे उनका सब कुछ चेक था, चेकलिस्ट में वो चेक हो रहे थे, when they the the person who was who hired them refused them just because they were very controversial, and they had stuff on their paywalls that the company didn't agree with, and then they lost their jobs, and they were like really high paying jobs. So I guess I agree and I understand in this perspective as well, that how you what you're saying over here and how we need to be careful what we put out there is relevant. Exactly. Thank you so much for
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you have hit the nail right on the head. That is one of the things. It's not just abroad. It happens locally as well. As I said, a lot of you say whatever you say online, it sticks. And since given most of us don't have the time to investigate what we are sharing, that becomes an even
Hmm.
bigger problem. And it's really important to share information that you have verified, and almost nobody does that nowadays.
And यहाँ पे एक और इंटरनेट का एक टॉपिक आता है, दैट्स हर्ड मेंटेलिटी. सो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट दैट कि हर्ड मेंटेलिटी क्या होती है, एंड हाउ इट्स इन्फ्लुएंसिंग पीपल, एंड हाउ इट्स डन. या.
So देखिए, हर्ड मेंटालिटी से पहले अगर हम ये बात इस तरह से समझें कि a lot of times when you sit down and think about, you think you live in a very unsafe world. Perhaps this is the most unsafe the world has ever been in the history of human beings. That's not really the case. Uh, what has changed is that information travels with the speed of light. So, on the other side of the world, something happens. The smallest of things they get reported, they get that information gets to you. So you're being bombarded with overwhelming information all the time. So is the case with all the social media. There's a lot that goes on, and we see all sorts of stuff trending every day. Everybody just jumps the bandwagon. What kind of like my rule of getting involved with so because and most of the people, as I said, side on one of the extremes, whereas there is a lot that can happen that can be discussed in between. Like in the case I said, I talked about fast. One of the things that I said was the primary thing that we need to pay attention to is that institute should support victims. This time around, perhaps, and again, I'm assuming at the time when no action was taken, faculty was the victim, but there is a lot of times students are the victim as well. So it's not about faculty or student; it's about who the victim is, and they should be given full support when it comes to the institute. So in herd mentality as well, you just okay, somebody is talking trash about someone, and since a lot more people start doing it, you start going with it as well. And I think it's also feeds into our narcissistic values where we like to be loud, we like to kind of like the things to be about ourselves. Uh,
Same.
so that's why it pushes us to kind of like jump into every conversation. One of the rules that I think is that can be followed is that talk about topics that are closer to what you know, and they're
Right.
about people that are closer to you as well. Uh, like I chose to talk about the matter in fast, but I didn't choose to talk about LGS because I didn't really have the full disclosure of the information that I had. So it's really important to pick what you want to talk about and what you not want to talk about
सही है.
based on the information that you have.
Hmm. And then, just thinking of what you're gonna talk about. Again, when you didn't know about कि अपने LGS वाले पे आपको इतना disclosure नहीं था, but then you pick your words very particularly कि आपने समझ कर जो है ना situation में इसको आपने उसको mold करके उसमें बात की ताकि you were not being biased towards any side without knowing the full information. So again, you just put up a great example of how you need to be
Absolutely, and
careful
now
with
since the action has been taken and it has been proven that those girls were being sexually harassed or harassed, so there is no point. So the faculty members or teachers who did that, they shouldn't get any support from anyone. But before that, if you don't have that information, because we see a lot that when someone speaks up, they get bashed a lot because a lot of
yeah.
people just want to jump in and target them instead of what they are saying. So it's really important to pick things that you know about or know a little about and kind of like form an articulate opinion on.
सही हो गया. अच्छा तो हमने आज अभी तक हमने जो कन्वर्सेशन अपनी रखी है वी हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट हाउ पीपल आर एक्चुअली एक्टिंग एंड रिएक्टिंग रिस्पॉन्सिंग और रिस्पॉन्डिंग ऑन द इंटरनेट साइबर स्पेस में वो क्या करते हैं वो किस तरह से लोगों के साथ इंटरेक्ट करते हैं सोशलाइज करते हैं. So let's move forward. Just like मैंने आपके introduction में बोला कि that you with the Mindstorm Labs that you are working on the video game industry of Pakistan. Let's talk about the future of video game industry क्योंकि एक ज़माने में लोग Facebook पे नहीं आते थे लोग इंटरनेट यूज करते थे फॉर गेम्स एंड अभी भी हमारी कई जो हमारे भाई बहन मेरे बहन भाई जो हैं और मेरे दोस्त हैं और वो सब लोग जो हैं वो इंटरनेट यूज करते हैं solely for the purpose of entertainment and that they get from the video games that they're playing. So how do you see, and being in the field of video games, how do you see the future of video games in Pakistan, and then we'll talk about further on this, just how do you see the
So
future of
future
video
of video games is definitely really bright. Let me give you an example. So the movies industry is about I think $60 billion, and the music industry is about $10 billion. That's about $70 billion in total. The gaming
अच्छा
industry is about $160 billion. So it's bigger than both of them combined, actually twice of that. So
yeah
when it comes to let's say doing $1 billion revenue for a movie, it takes a movie about 6 months and a very careful planning on how many screens it will be released on and all of that to get to $1 billion. But
अच्छा,
when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, it did $1 billion in 15 days. Then Call of Duty
अच्छा,
came out, and Call of Duty did about $1 billion in 3 days. So gaming industry, what we don't realize is the huge industry. It's out
hmm.
there. We haven't been on it. What has happened is that we haven't been paying a lot of attention to it. And when I say we, it's primarily I'm also in a way talking about how institutes, academic institutes, have been ignoring this field that is very lucrative and it has a lot of potential.
They
Since
see it as a वो तो बिल्कुल उसको एक दुश्मन समझते हैं वीडियो
देखिए
गेमिंग
आज भी ना
इंडस्ट्री।
गेमिंग को वक्त का ज़िया समझते हैं।
हाँ,
और जो है ना उसको वी डोंट वांट टू चैनलाइज दैट एनर्जी इनटू पॉजिटिव एनर्जी। So this is a huge industry that we have been ignoring for the longest period of time, and due to internet and due to uh, the information highway that we sit on, again there are no boundaries anymore in the gaming industry as well, because cell phone has changed this industry completely as well. So now it's not just about hardcore gamers who are playing on PCs or let's say console gamers. Everybody's playing games. It's not about younger kids playing. There are older people. The gaming industry में भी 45 50 55 years की demographic है तो games खेलती हैं.
यस,
So there are
सम
different
ऑफ
games in the industry.
मेरी अम्मी कैंडी क्रश खेलती हैं मतलब,
Yeah.
तो देयर
There you go. So Mindstorm Studios basically started off as a company that made a cricket game a long time ago. That was I think around 2005 2006. From there to casual gaming to now hyper casual. So we basically uh, build hyper casual games, which are very simple games for a very general and big audience, and it's a huge industry. Hyper casual gaming itself is about $2 to $3 billion industry right now, and it's growing. It's a new industry. And Mindstorm Studio, hands down, is the best gaming studio in the country. We Just to give you a little bit of background, we basically have built games that have been on the number one spot in gaming in all the app stores. We did that twice this year. The last game that went to the number one spot for Mindstorm Studio was Super Salon. So it was a hyper casual game. And now, what my job at Mindstorm is, I run an initiative called Mindstorm Labs, and what Minecraft Lab is aimed to do is to kind of like spread that knowledge of how to build A-class games with really high production value and get them to the number one spot in the App Store. So that's kind of
अच्छा,
like so we I'm a bit outward facing towards the industry and younger people when it comes to helping them out and understanding how this is done.
so tell us, for example, if someone who's watching us and is really interested into going into the video game industry, are there jobs available, and how do they connect with people who are working in this industry? And tell us क्या आपको बेसिक स्किल लेवल क्या चाहिए होता है, क्या एजुकेशन चाहिए होती है, कैन एनीवन डू इट, एंड या सिंपल हाउ डू यू एंटर दिस इंडस्ट्री एंड आर दिस स्पेसेस?
Okay, that's a really good question. So, just to give you an idea, when it comes to jobs, gaming industry is one of those few industries, alongside, let's say, online education, that is booming right now. People are at home. Actually, there's a huge increase. There's an upward trajectory when it comes to growth in gaming as well. There are games out there that do more revenue than our entire IT export combined. Let's take
अच्छा,
Fortnite. Fortnite, I think, does about anywhere from $4 to $6 billion, whereas our entire IT export is somewhere between $1 to $2 billion. So one game does 3 times more revenue than our entire IT industry. So there are a lot of jobs, there is a lot of potential. And when it comes to the skill that you need, so there are 3 4 different skill sets that are very useful when it comes to getting employment in gaming in the game development industry. So obviously there are programmers that are needed, then there are artists, and then there are game designers. These 3 skills are the most essential skills. And essentially, as they say, you don't really need a degree for anything nowadays. but you do need a skill. So a programming degree, if you have that one, you have a possibility of a really good career in game development industry. One of the things that one should do is to get a lot of exposure, play a lot of games to see how games are built, how they work. Um, and so, for this particular reason, for a younger audience, we are actually launching a program soon as well, where we are offering paid internships to a select few that we are going to select soon, and we are going to walk them through an exposure and training kind of like program, where they're going to get a lot of training when it comes to how to build games, work with professionals who have built top level games
Mhm.
in the Mindstorm Studio, learn with them and build their own games. And at the end of the day, whoever performs better, we're going to hire them as well.
All right, interesting, very interesting. So there are jobs and there is a huge potential and there's and as you told us कि काफी पैसा भी है इस field के अंदर. अच्छा तो being one of those people who are actively working in the video game industry in Pakistan, tell us कि have you guys looked upon looked upon कुछ आपने किस बारे में सोचा है कि how do you connect with the education institutions and have you connected with the education institutions in the past and have they been responsive and how they have responded? Yeah.
So I myself I'm a gamer, but when it comes to the industry, I'm fairly new to this industry. But this is something that
अच्छा.
has kind of like captured my interest for a long period of time. Actually, I tried gathering interest from at least the institute I was part of or I was studying from back in the days when I was a student. Uh,
अच्छा.
but our kind of like institutes haven't been paying a lot of attention to it. So we do plan to in future reach out to institutes and help them understand that this is an industry that requires certain skill set, and how these institutes can help these kids learn those skill sets as well. But primarily, one of the things that matters the most is the exposure that you have. Uh, because if you are a good programmer, you'll do fine in gaming industry, game development industry. But you need to also have a little bit of sense of game design as well. So perhaps looking at there's perhaps some kind of game designing courses or exposure courses in this field would certainly help. At this point in time, we are not looking to, but through our internship program, we plan to kind of like slowly impact the education sector and younger kids, and kind of like spawn an interest in this industry where not a lot of people are looking at right now, but there is a lot of potential. And there is, so this is something, a typical case of making your passion your work life. So it's that
Okay.
simple as that at the end of the day.
Very interesting, very interesting. So it was, honestly, it was great to hear कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर भी वीडियो गेमिंग का पोटेंशियल है. There are actually people working in this field. I honestly, personally, I would admit that I didn't know this myself, and I'm honored to know about this. Thank you so much for informing us and engaging with us. अच्छा, तो we are almost at the end of our session today here and we tried आज हमारा टॉपिक था एनिग्मा ऑफ इंटरनेट एंड here is it कि आज हमारे पास जितना भी मिनट था we could not we admit we haven't covered the whole internet and there are a lot of topics that can be talked about in this broad topic and but we tried and Yasser and now I would like to just conclude what we have talked about internet industry today and cyberspace and हमने क्या बात की and how it's relevant. Yeah, over to you.
So one thing that I would say is that, so internet is an open highway. So it totally depends on how what you make of it. So there is a lot of information available. There is a lot of knowledge available, and there is a lot of useless stuff happening there as well. So it totally depends on what you make of it. If you're an entrepreneur, go and subscribe all sorts of great entrepreneurial resources online. If you are someone who loves technology or loves learning things, there are all sorts of courses on all sorts of platforms, both free and paid, that you can enroll into. So whatever your passion is, you can always find a lot of information and an interest circle as well, which is something that is really important. For me, I've been online since mid and late 90s. I've made a lot of friends online. Contrary to the belief, I am still friends with them. I meet them as well in person. So you can find your interest circle there as well.
Hmm.
So it totally depends on what you make of it. uh, it's kind of like get away from the daily distraction on internet and do something that interests you and find people. You'll be able to find people in all corners of the world that will have similar interest and help you have fun and learn as well.
Thank you. On that very nice note, I would like to thank you for engaging with us, for coming live with us, and sharing your आपका 15 साल आपका जो experience था of internet industry with us. Thank you so much, Yasir, for joining. Um,
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Now I would like to thank my audience who were live with us and who were watching us. I hope you guys, enjoyed a lot and learned a lot, like I did. कल हम इंशाल्लाह फिर आपके साथ हाजिर होंगे. कल हमारा टॉपिक है psychology of social applications. We'll be talking all about Facebook, Instagram, and all of the social applications that we're using these days. उनकी अपनी psychology क्या और उनको हम किस नजर से हम यूज करते हैं. तो तब तक के लिए हमें इजाज़त दीजिए. अपना ख्याल रखिएगा, अपने घर वालों का ख्याल रखिएगा और अल्लाह